Do we wanna sell that
Oh,
dump
back
box
to that.
outright? Or, and the other stuff, put it on the internet for sale, set it out front with a for sale sign on it, with a number on it?
I have a little experience in that area, and 2,500 for that used box, I'd let it fly in a hurry.
That's what I said.
Especially if we're keeping all the components on.
We already got it, it's already stripped, yeah.
So, but what do you want to do for the other two items? You want to just have a garage sale or tag sale, or do you want to put it out on?
If we put it on Auctions International, it
They're
don't
gonna
cost us nothing. You know, it's just a matter of sending a couple pictures to them.
Well, we're looking at two different deals, the
Yeah,
box
well-
and the rest of the stuff.
Right.
Uh,
The box, if you guys accept $2,500 for the box, we can just sell it outright, because I probably.
I'd make that motion, we take the $2,500 offer on the box, as long as I'm halfway legal doing it. We can sell something at 2,500, can't we?
Yeah,
Why
as long as we deem it surplus.
Okay, well, it's surplus it is,
Yep.
because you
Yep.
took it off. So I guess the motion has to say, I make a motion that we sell the surplus dump box for the $2,500 offer that we have.
Second.
Second, any further discussion?
So,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done deal. Okay, your other air compressor and lawnmower.
I just throw them on Auctions International, that's all you usually get rid of it. That way there.
I make a motion that we give Artie permission to dispose of the other items, compressor and lawnmower.
Second, discussion? In favor of? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we got them.
Oh, one clarification. Do I gotta bring the numbers to the board next month, or if it brings, whatever they bring, I think we just get rid of it. Because,
Was your motion to sell or to do?
To sell.
Bingo.
okay,
All right?
whatever it brings, it brings.
Okay. All right,
That's all I had. Another thing is, if I should pursue numbers on replacing that 1-ton pickup truck.
yes.
doesn't hurt to get numbers.
I'll bring numbers next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
In the, just to kind of give you some guidance on that grade all, you know, I have found in the past with heavy equipment, I have bought two pieces of heavy equipment that are very similar, figuring that out of the two I'd make one good one. And I found that the same components were wore out on both, and I was wasting a lot of time and money.
That was my thought too. I was hoping that the pins and bushings were good in that one, and they were worse than ours, so.
Now, with grade alls, a lot of them are the standard 2-inch shafts or standard that you buy, that machine shops buy. And you can go quite a ways with the local machinist
Yeah.
in doing that. But you know, I wouldn't put an awful lot more money in that grade all, including the guy's time in the garage. Now, putting the new box, this used box we bought on the truck and like that, you're increasing the longevity. With the grade all, I put a $8,000 overhaul on a Cummins engine, and the truck has 250,000 miles on it now, and you know, the truck might be worth 10. I don't want to get in that position with that
Well,
grade all.
that's what, when I saw $4,100 for these parts, I said that the last grade all only brought $5,000 on Auctions International.
Yeah,
I didn't want to put $4,000 in a $5,000 machine.
back off.
So that's why I did some homework and got it down to 2,400.
Well, and
Which-
that's why also we've been trying out these other machines that are more versatile and less money.
Yep.
Where are you on that, Artie, by the way?
We've tried two, there's a third one coming. Minden's got one sitting down there, the salesman wants us to try, so he's gonna bring that one up, we're gonna try that one.
And then you think you'd be ready to come up with an idea of what you want?
I'm waiting on information on the John Deere. I got a price on it, but I haven't got any literature onto it. I wanna try one. I just don't, I hate to buy one without trying it,
No, we don't want you
so. mean,
to. I don't want to get into a
The
situation.
two we
where-
tried were good machines. There was a sizable difference in price, but you get what you pay for. And each one had better qualities than the other. So,
Okay.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you'll find the John Deere is a foreign manufacturer too.
I think it's a
And
Hitachi.
it might be very similar to what you've already tried out.
Yeah. I just, for the heck of it, I just said I'd price John Deere just because the dealer's close, just like everything. But the other dealers are all, everybody's Albany or Clifton Park. There's nobody close for this stuff anymore.
and we don't have an emergency at the present time. And they're starting to stock these things, right?
Yeah.
So, we can go kind of slow. Okay, we're all set with the highway? Okay, next is the justice report. Mrs. Dunn, would you like to speak now, or would you like to wait?
Justice meaning me or Justice
Well,
Tiger?
I wanted to put you in maybe ahead of the justice report.
Do you have a report? You don't.
I turned my report in.
Okay, so I don't know. I just have the one that I gave. Jamie, did you see it? Did everybody see it on the town courts? Is that what you'd like me to address, is the town court system?
You had other
Well, I have
things.
other stuff. Are you talking about the legal attorney's report or the justice report? Now I'm
Well,
confused.
we don't have an attorney's report on here, so I had to write you in, and I got
Okay.
you in a couple different spots, whatever you want to do.
Okay, well, pitch in if you have something to say then. This one, I'll just hand this out. This is to piggyback on Judge Seiss, the need for the courts. Oh, I'm sorry. You got one. There's one for you. And I have an extra copy that we can make copies of afterward if people need to see it. The town court, we've just heard, and I was reviewing minutes for the last couple months, that there have been the discussions because in the past, I think a previous board had voted a one fewer justice, which is allowable by law. Incidentally, we can vote that back by resolution too. So if you find your load is becoming overwhelming, because I'm going to discuss the duties that you're receiving here shortly. If your load is too much, maybe the town board wants to consider adding another justice. But it's necessitated, the town court is necessitated by equity. That means, sorry, you can correct. That means that to be fair in our country, we need a town court. We need our townspeople to be able to come to a court, to be able to access the judicial system in the way that they can only do through a town court. That's because of the cost. It's very cost effective compared to the Supreme Court costs, which filing fees are outrageous compared to what we can do here in town courts. They're closer. Litigants can represent themselves here. We have a lot of summary proceedings that go before the town justice. And we can keep a lot of town matters within the town, like our local traffic violations, etc. So that's point one. Point two is it's necessitated by law. Town law section 20, every town shall have two justices, with the exception if you remove one by resolution. But you can't remove both. You can't remove your town court. The uniform rules of the trial courts, part 214A. It's their policy that the public is best served by justice courts, which function in facilities provided by the municipality, etc. And as established by town law, the town court handles vehicle and traffic law violations, penal law, which is violations, misdemeanors, felony arraignments, preliminary hearings, and issues orders of protection. And civil law actions up to $3,000, which Judge Seiss had referred to. As well as summary proceedings like landlord-tenant disputes, which we have a lot of within our individual towns. We have right now, which I don't think any of you are or may not be aware of, but for sure the general public is not aware of, the increased need right now for a town court, because the state criminal courts are relying increasingly more and more on our town justices. They've just passed a couple laws. The first one regarding bail that becomes effective in January 2020. They anticipate a much increased need for pretrial hearings and jury trials at the town court level, and a courtroom like this can't support a jury at all, even a small jury, which most of these would have smaller juries, which requires improvements to the current courtroom, which I believe was already stated in an audit that I actually haven't seen, but I've heard referred to. Okay. Judge Dygert was also asked by a panel of judges, Judge Seiss being one of them. I'm kind of surprised he didn't state it when he was here, but also Judge Tomlinson, Family Court Judge Cortez, and Judge Katina, the County Court Judge, to inform the town that the courtroom has to be improved to meet the needs of having the jury trials. There's also a new raise the age law. It's effective, I guess it took effect 2 different dates, October 1st of last year and October 1st of this year. which causes the family court to handle offenders age 16 and 17 years old. The issue is that the family court is not open in evenings and weekends, but the town justices are required to be open evenings and weekends. And so they have assigned on a rotational 5-week basis each of the town justices to be available to hold those arraignments in their court. And so once again, we have this increased need. And again, maybe we'll have an increased need for a justice. I don't know. Yeah.
What they did is they, because the family court's not available on nights and weekends, and they thought of that after they dreamed up this law, the chief administrative judge chose 5 of us as what they call accessible magistrates. And we had to go to training. They came here and they installed scanners and programs into our computer so that if we get called night, weekend, or whenever family court's not available, if there's a 16-year-old this year, next year it will include 17-year-olds. We have to do the arraignment, we have to scan the paperwork, we have to do an audio recording, and it all has to be in family court by 9 o'clock the next morning. We have to scan that, we have to load it into our computer, and we have to send it to them. There's 5 of us that were chosen in Montgomery County by the chief administrative judge to handle this raise the age business as accessible magistrates. So I'm on a 5-week schedule. Every 5th week, in fact this week I'm on call. So I can't go anywhere without being in range of my cell phone. And if I get called, I gotta do it. And it's not just for the town of Palatine. I'm on call for the whole county. City of Amsterdam, town of Florida, all the towns. When one of us is on call, we're on call for the whole county. And they've changed our jurisdiction so that we can cover countywide, whereas a town justice, we're only allowed to do our town or an adjoining town, except in the case of a felony arraignment, we can do anywhere in the county. But for this particular raise the age law, we have jurisdiction within the whole county. I guess.
Well, and I think it's an honor to have you be chosen to do that. I think it's an honor. After hearing what Judge Seiss said about you, I'm even more impressed. But I think it's an honor to our town to have that, to have him as our justice and to be chosen for that role. And the last point on my handout is the increased income for the town courts. That's been argued a little bit. Maybe it's a wash in the end. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but the town of Palatine Town Court collected fines and fees totaling $538,405.86 from 2010 to 2017. Out of that money, $219,513.71 was retained actually by the town of Palatine. So those aren't numbers to sneeze at, in my opinion. One thing that I failed to write down on this, but Greg reminded me of before he left, we had a grant that maybe you can address. It runs out very soon.
July 1st.
It runs out July 1st. What was do you want to explain it? The amount? I don't have it on my papers.
I've gotten several extensions which really I shouldn't have been allowed to do, but they did give me the extension. The last extension is July 1st. And July 1st, if we don't have some type of construction where I can use that money, the town has to send the money back.
What's the amount of it?
$30,000.
So that's a lot. So that's another unfortunate consequence of the delay in the Pizza Hut purchase, because that could have immediately been put to use. One of the projected uses of the Pizza Hut property is for the new court.
Anybody, the door's open, anybody can walk in there and tell me if that's an adequate facility to hold a court. The ceiling still leaks.
I heard your clerk uses a
Well, we have a bucket in the ceiling to catch the water that comes down in a hose into a bucket on the floor. Right now the bucket's half full. We had to move my clerk away from her desk and borrowed a table from Linda so the clerk could sit on the floor and use that desk. We had to move all the computer equipment because one day I came in, I held the keyboard up and the water just ran out of the keyboard. and that's all state equipment. I don't know, I mean, I don't like to complain, but I've been dealing with this for a long, long time, and it's definitely not adequate. I don't know of any other courtroom that exists.
Well, and I felt like I needed to make it a point, because this has been an issue ongoing since I started coming to these meetings, and it's always mentioned and then put aside, and mentioned and put aside, but I think the auditors have said, you must have one. The state court systems have said, you must have something, and we must have something. We can't just keep saying it's okay. I don't know where that stands. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
Well, no, you haven't finished. Do you have more
Not
to
the
say?
whole report, but with this issue, yes, I'm done now with the
I'm
courts.
curious as to they built you a dais, sir? Is that what they did? Or they're building you
A
something?
bench.
Yeah.
Judge Seiss wanted me to have this.
No, I understand that, but
They didn't build it for him.
can you tell me what the dimensions of this are?
I saw it today, I should have brought the pictures, I loaded them, I had them sent to my computer, but the thing is probably from the door to that jog in the partition. I mean, it's huge, and, but the fella that built it, which happens to be Linda's brother, built it in 3 sections. So when they're done with it, and it comes to the town of Palatine, he's gonna be able to cut it down to the size that we need for here. And what I told him was, because the initial projection was that if this building becomes a court building, that wall would be blown away, those windows would be closed or covered, and the bench would be there, and I would be in the back office, and have a rail to come out to be in the bench. That's kind of a tentative dream, but the bench would have to fit across there. And it would be enough for me and a desk for my clerk to be alongside of me on the bench. Just like it is in county court, but in a smaller scale.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, well, I'm not meant to editorialize here, so I'll keep it brief, but personally, I've never seen the need, and this is revisiting what may be starting to be a horse on its last legs. I've never seen the need to split the government building in this town, which is small, into 2 buildings. And I have the sense that somehow whatever dais or structure you get could be put in here, but also the open area could be used for the regular town issues. In other words, perhaps not expanding through that wall, perhaps not expanding into the clerk's office, preserving all those issues. I feel like we're getting our arms twisted tonight, folks. Very nicely, we had a wonderful presentation by the judge and so forth, but this is basically arm twisting. It's trying to give us a fait accompli for something that not all of us think should happen.
Well, that's what I think I was trying to address, because I had, and maybe this isn't appropriate, if you think this is a discussion better held at a different
Yeah,
time,
I'll
we can
stop
do
now.
this.
Everybody knows how I feel about
Well,
this.
it's not that, it's that repeatedly we've heard, and I've reviewed the minutes from previous months, repeatedly I hear, we can just vote it out, to have Canajahari take the court, and I was trying to show you a legal opinion that there is law that says, no, that's not an
Right.
option. So since that's not an option, since we have grant money,
Well-
since we have court support, a donation of a bench, etc., we have a lot of options.
You've set up an admirable
to-
casuistry here, because
Oh,
you've got
well,
A,
okay,
then
that is what
implies
I
B,
do.
then implies C, then implies D.
That's fine, but legally, you can't get rid of your court, and it is not up to me if you, I don't care one whit where the court is. I am not advocating court here, court Pizza Hut.
No, you're doing a
We've
good
got a
job
couple-
advocating, actually.
No, I'm not. I don't care where the court is, but I absolutely am advocating for a court. Every person in this
Ray,
town deserves a town court.
I think we've come to the realization that there is and shall be a court, but I'm saying,
Well, okay, that's okay.
I'm saying-
That's a first.
as-
Right there is a really good step in the right direction.
because the one refereed article I read on town courts, when I researched this earlier, said that they're problematic, and basically because a lot of them were manned by, not this excellent judge,
Yes,
but
I read that same
by
article.
lay judges who shoot from the hip.
They try very hard in New York State to train them very well.
Yes,
And
I understand
We're
that.
very impressed, at
Yes,
least
and I'm
as attorneys. We're impressed with the various courts we've gone to. We have had very professional judges, and they're all lay judges in all the towns and
Okay.
villages. I find them to
No,
be
they're not.
excellent.
50% of them at least are lawyers.
Oh, I don't know. The ones that we've experienced in this
Yeah,
area are
if-
not lawyers.
Okay, but if you were to poll
Okay,
all
but-
the judges in the
I'm
state,
pulling
you
all
know.
the judges in this state.
But us as a board, how can we sit here and listen to the presentation that somebody as respectable and honorable as Judge Seiss talk about our judge that is highly respectable and
Sure. Not
and
to
not give
to
him
subtract
a
him
court
from
that
him at
he's
all.
deserving of? Would you as a judge want to work out of something like that with the conditions that he's had and how many years he's been doing it? I wouldn't.
Betty, no one says that we want to. As a matter of fact,
But why don't we help change?
as a matter of fact,
do the
I
changes
sat
that
down
need
with
to be
the
done?
Office of Court Administrator, I have seen several different layouts of plans, okay, that the judge had submitted some photos, I'm trying to remember that gentleman's name, just a couple of years ago, to transform this facility to be able to accommodate town business and the court
But we've
business.
been told by 3 contractors that that can't happen.
Hang on a
We
minute.
can't have both of them in here.
Hang on a minute.
What?
It's
That's
not big
news to
enough.
me, but here's, I'm not against, listen, we have facilities. They may not be adequate, but we have facilities. Before we go making a huge dollar commitment, it is our duty, we are all duty bound here, to vet and come up with multiple solutions and then act on the best solution in the interest of the residents of the town. Okay? We have brought up several times that the courts don't make a lot of money, which is fine. If we're mandated to have it, listen, Cliff doesn't pay his bill all the way either.
We just
Okay?
heard that we took in $219,000.
Over 10 years. That's around $21,000 to
It's still bringing
$23,000 a year. If you take away salaries and you take away your usury of the facility, we're about a wash, if not a little bit negative. Some years we're a little bit positive. But if you take over the general trend, we're about a wash. What I'm saying is, we make smart, informed decisions, planning for the future of this town, not knee-jerk reactions. We have been discussing changing facilities since before I got on the board. We've been discussing changing facilities. I believe there needs to be a change, but it needs to be smartly done, and it needs to be vetted for the future growth or whatever kind of growth we have in this town, whether it's contraction, whether it's growth, whether it's acquisitions, whether it's shared services. It needs to be well thought out and not rushed into, which is my argument all the way along. We rushed into trying to buy a pig in a poker ring, okay? I want the judge to have a good facility that's not only good and aesthetically pleasing, but it needs to be safe for the residents and for him. Okay, we haven't talked a lot about court safety, but that's a paramount. I was in the Amsterdam City Court not too long ago, and it is darn near impossible to get to that judge without, there's 3 or 4 hurdles that someone would have to do before they can cause harm to the judge. Anyone could walk in here and cause harm to the judge without even a blink of an eye.
And we've had inmates or prisoners escape
So
from
we
there,
need to
and
come up-
this place is not safe for the
So
judge
let's
as
come
it
up
is.
with a solution.
And we've been trying to do that.
I have not seen a workable solution presented to me yet. And I would be more than happy to show you some of the ones that have been presented and have been sketched out, and we can still work on it, but it's not, no one believes it's important to rush into something just for that.
Well, I can honestly sit here and say, because Ronnie sat on the committee, Jim sat on the committee, we had Scott Burton in here, he did a feasibility study on this building, and there was plans drawn up. This building is not adequate, it can either be used for a town office building, or it can be used for a justice court. It cannot be used for both. And I believe we still have the plans, don't we, Linda?
Yes, we do.
Well,
That's
we
what I
can-
thought.
We can discuss that.
It
That's,
can be used for one or the other. You do not have enough footprint to do both.
Well, Bill was talking about adding in a police unit in the other end of the building, which would subtract from, presumably from the court use.
That is an option.
Okay, that's
It's
not cast in stone.
No, No, I have said several times, we need the additional floor space. That's number one, we need it. That makes something of the Pizza Hut flavor or a new building imperative. As you see by this motion that's set in here today, somebody went down to the county and said $60,000 and all kinds of figures. I introduced two pieces of paper. One was the motion that was based on Mr. Bowerman's email. All right? That was a motion. We made a motion to comply with Mr. Bowerman's request and obtain the Pizza Hut for somewhere in the vicinity of $5,000. All right? And that's a building that's a little bit bigger than this
Well,
one.
then they wanted to have us pay back taxes.
Now, okay, that's a separate piece of paper, and Mr. Kamen supplied another piece of paper that was his first offer to the town, and I told you that we would be negotiating that, and he's after a lot of things he isn't going to get.
Good.
And that came out as a piece in the paper that said, oh,